Great morning to you. Reverend Aileen, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. The last few weeks have been pretty intense. We were in a two-part series on the radical power of oneness. And hopefully you've had a chance to sit with some of those thoughts and be with how you're shaping your world with some of that information and hopefully some of it inspiration. Today I would like to, as we bring the month of February to conclusion, I would like to bring things in a little more calm way, I think, today. I felt pretty fiery the last few weeks, and there's a place for that. And we're still needing to be aware, and actually that's a part of my sharing with you today. I'm revisiting the thoughts of awake, aware, alert, but not alarmed. So with everything that's going on, what we're seeing in the world outside of us, what we're experiencing within us, it's important for us to remain awake and for us to live in a constant state of awareness and alertness. Don't ignore what you're seeing, but be careful that you don't become alarmed. And here's one of the reasons for it. Because your mind does something every single day that shapes your entire life, and it's called confirmation bias. Nothing that we're doing, seeing, hearing is done out of purity while we're still waking up, because the mind needs to be in charge. It needs to be in charge so that it can make you feel safe. And what it does is it tricks you, but it's tricking you by design to make you feel safe, to make you feel a sense. Otherwise, you'd go crazy, as they say. You would lose your mind. But I want to encourage us to not be afraid of losing our mind. Stay with me. To the degree that our minds have been conditioned to literally live from a place of judgment, bias, and limitation. And religion and our governmental structure has helped to feed that because it's best for the systems as they are. And this is what I mean by becoming awake. Letting go of the mind is about getting into the quiet, getting into the silence, getting into the calm. And the reason your mind fights that much is because when you're being in the quiet and you're in the stillness, the mind is not in control, and the mind starts to lose its mind. And it loses its hold. And as it's losing its hold, the ego begins to lose its hold as well, because they work together in concert to control the way you see information, the way you hear information, and how you act, how you behave in this life. Your mind wants to confirm what it already has decided to believe. And this is why beliefs, more than anything else, stand in the way of truth. And this is why every great sage and teacher throughout time, every light shower and way shower has told us to relieve ourselves from the prison of the mind. The next wave of evolution for humanity is to transcend the mind so that we can transform our human experience. We are in the process of transcending. This is why we're seeing the splits and the divisions, and we're seeing more clearly some of the craziness of the world. Sometimes we start to feel like we're in the twilight zone. You know how you can talk to someone and are you getting is any of this happening to you? You can speak to someone about a subject, share with them what you have found to be fact, and it doesn't matter how many facts you share. It still holds true to a particular belief, still holding on to a belief. Their mind needs them to. Stop trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm going to say that one more time because we probably need to rest in that. Stop trying to convince anyone of anything. We're not called here to convince other people or to convict other people or to condemn other people. This is our own personal journey to free ourselves from the prison of our mind. If you believe in your mind that people can't be trusted, your mind is going to constantly notice situations to prove that that's true. It will continue to reinforce that belief because that's what confirmation bias is. The mind seeks out memes, quotes, and individuals that will prove that what you believe is actually true when it's not. If you believe that you're unlucky, then your brain is going to highlight bad things that happen in your life, and it's going to frustrate you. How many of you have ever had one of those days? I've heard people say, I'm having one of those days. What do you mean? Compounded activities that are confirming what I believe. The only way to shake us out of what we believe is to start questioning what we believe. And I'm talking about questioning it at all. I started questioning myself just recently what I believe about America. What do I really believe about politics? What do I really believe about our governmental structures? What do I really believe about religion? I told you all at the end of last year, I said, I'm not going to share with you the other thing that I wrote down at Burning Bowl, but I'm going to share with you the main thing I wrote down, and that was what? I'm giving up my spiritual self. And you could have heard a pin drop in the room. What does that mean, you're giving up your spiritual self? Well, the spiritual self had also become another concept. I want to constantly be challenging what it is that I think I believe so that I'm constantly asking my mind to be elastic and continue to be my servant, not my master. Because the mind is a wonderful servant, but it is a horrible master. Because it operates in the past. It's operating off of experiences that have already occurred. It's not operating off of creativity. I love how you brought that up, Barb, when you were reading some of us are afraid of creativity because I think the mind is afraid that you'll become creative. Because when you become creative, you start doing things that doesn't need the mind's instructions. And the mind is grasping for keeping charge of this personality and this persona and these things that we've built. If you believe that you're not good enough, your mind is going to selectively remember every single failure and on purpose overlook successes. This is one of the reasons that some people, you can pay them a compliment and they'll talk you out of it. You ever notice that? Have you ever been in love with somebody that you complimented them, and every time you complimented them, they had 14 things that would tell you a different story than just the simple compliment you gave to them? That's the mind. Be aware of it. Don't be afraid of it. But be awake to that as a reality and work to renew the mind. In other words, start instructing the mind instead of being instructed by it. Your emotions are not your instructions. They're signals only. The feelings are signs. They're not the destination. They're not in charge. Reminding yourself constantly. And I know some of us are saying, yeah, but we say this all the time. I know that's what I mean. Let's continue to come back to this and question, what is it that I actually believe? Even about my own spiritual life. Why is it that I am so afraid of what's being put out in the media right now? Why am I living in fear? See, we've all been drugged as a society to live on media and now social media, and to actually believe that that medium is true when it all has a spin. Even the news you like has a spin. Because it's all coming through someone else's mind, someone else's interpretation, someone else's perception. How do I know what's true? This is what starts to happen. We get frustrated. I had 5 people tell me this week. Well, then how do I know what's true? Because some conversations have come out of this radical power of oneness. And it's been, okay, well, if what you're saying then is true, how do I know what is true? Because you're saying I can't believe any of it, that it's all just one big facade, that we're in a simulation of sorts, and this is just a game. How do I know what's true? Your North Star is love. Your North Star is compassion. Your North Stars are peace, love, and compassion. If you can't believe anything else, you can believe those things. This is why people will say, well, then how should I vote then? Based on what you said, I said, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but as you go to the booth, ask yourself, the platform that you're casting your vote energy toward, does it represent love and compassion and peace? If it does not represent those things, you might ask yourself, am I really voting what I really want to see occur in my world? Yes, but what if that candidate's lying? What do you mean, what if? That's like the number one thing on the top 5 things they're supposed to do. What if I believe it's not true? Then put your vote, put your energy into what you want to see happen. Do you want to see compassionate leadership? Do you want to see loving leadership? Do you want to see inclusion? Do you want to see equality and equity and harmony and peace and joy? Is that what you want to see? Then put your activity into those things, because I do believe that if you can't find any other truth, love is the truth. One of the things I thought about this week as I was thinking about awake, aware, alert, but not alarmed, is I was raised in an environment where we were commanded to save souls. And in New Thought, we're doing the same thing. We just call it something different. Folks don't normally come down to the altar, although you wouldn't believe that if you looked at our service from 3 weeks ago when we did. Folks don't normally come down to the altar at the end to, in a New Thought church to give up their sins, ask Jesus to come in their heart so they don't have to burn in the customized torture chamber for eternity. That's not typically what happens in a New Thought church. But there's still sort of this idea that we're out here just to save souls. And so I asked myself this week, is First Unity, are we here to save souls, or are we here to revolutionize systems? Because we've been taught for years that's what we're supposed to do, is to save souls and withdraw from the systems. Separation of church and state. You've heard those statements. Well, I don't believe that a church or any religious community should utilize the government and weaponize the government to make other people do what they think should be done. But if the churches and spiritual communities were focusing on love and compassion and equality and inclusion, which is exactly what Jesus taught, which is exactly what Siddhartha taught, and it's really, in fact, what Muhammad taught. If those were the things we were focusing on and we were calling for that kind of legislation, then I believe that our world would be different. But the church has just been trying to concentrate, really, let me say this. Here's what I think has happened to the church. We have McDonaldized it. And then people become monetized, not ministered to. We've created systems that quantify and try to measure people's spiritual growth. Good luck. There's no quantifying that. We want to make sure we have good customer service, but we're not interested in transformation. We want to make sure we look good to the world, make sure that we're this is why we do church growth campaigns, so that we can write down where are we at so far? How many people showed up this last week? Is that showing the health of our community? I don't think so. I think what is showing the health of our community is not the measurables, the scalables. It is, how is your world around you in Tampa Bay and St. Pete being affected by the people who are coming together in community? How's the energy shaping change in your world? There's a reason that the voice of God comes through the prophet during David's kingship in Israel and says, stop counting the people. Because it was how the king was measuring the success of the kingdom, by how many people were within its walls. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not interested in being a brand manager. I want to be conduit. And I want to be conduit that is not even leading overtly. In fact, here's the level of leadership I'd love to have. When I leave this world, and anything that I have done in this world, or anything that we do successfully as a community here, when the work is done, the people will say, look what we did, not look what he did. Because this is not about me. It's about being awake, aware, and alert to your own divine nature. But the systems of our world don't want you to be awake and aware and alert to who you really are. This is why everything from the water system to the food to what we see on TV and what we hear on radio is built around keeping you sleepy. Sick, scared, and separate. Broke, busted, and disgusted. Fight, flight, freeze. Go as far back as you want to and look at the history books and look at how over this last at least 50 or 60 years, this has been a methodical, systematic imprisonment and enslavement of human beings. Because if I can't put you in chains of steel, I'll put your mind in the chains of fear. Everything from our propaganda about the other countries in the world to our propaganda about each other on different sides of the aisle has been about keeping us separate and keeping us sick. That's why we don't have a health care system. We have a sick care system. That's why we treat symptoms. We don't cure ailments. Come on, I'm preaching to somebody up in here. It's time for us to really become actually awake. And even the word woke has been weaponized and used by one particular group. And then we look at it and we go, I'm woke. Sounds cool, right? I'm woke. And then we look at some of the elements and you go, well, I don't know if I'm that woke. I mean, that looks a little angry. It's kind of hateful. I don't know if I'm that woke. But I want to be awake. And a part of it I can get with, and a part of it I can't. See, the part that you can't get with, you know why that is? But most of the time, it's because love in you says, hey, wait a minute. No, that's over a line, and now that's back to sleep. Staying awake, you'll be able to sense it from the knowing that's within you, whether it's awakeness that you're seeing and hearing, or it's just another way to lull you to sleep. We are in the process of a monumental shift of humanity. That's why we are being sifted and shifted, and some of us feel shifted on in a constant frenzy. I'm seeing this all the time. I mean, you know how much stress, how many more drugs-related anxiety have been prescribed just since November? And my God, since January the 20th. Can I point something out? What is happening right now is mind control. This is why every day it's pop, 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 pop. Does that remind you of how torture goes on? How they reshape the minds of Marines to become special ops? They put them in a room that's dark, and then all of a sudden it's light, and ta, 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 ta. They use light and loud music, noise, chaos. Why? Because that's the easiest way to break a mind down and turn them into the machine you want them to be. Turn it off. Turn it off because it's hypnosis. Now, some folks will say that sounds crazy. Let me tell you something. I've been called crazy, socialist, communist, and pro-devil in the last 2 weeks. Somebody shared a video clip, which was really cool. They shared the video clip, so I found that interesting. And their caption was pro-Satan. I used to get emotionally charged by it, but I consider the source. I understand it. See, because to them, it is pro-Satan because it's adverse to what they think things, the way they think things should be. So I don't get angry about that stuff anymore. I got happy that they shared the video. I thought, well, that's interesting. You could have just done a static picture and said pro-Satan, but you shared the video. Somebody's going to watch it. But what's happening right now is this blitz of information. You know, I've mentioned to you before, too much information without enough inspiration will lead to the inflammation of yourself and soul. And most disease can be traced right back to the inflammation. We got to turn it off. You say, I don't want to be uninformed. Folks, you're being misinformed. So which one would you like, the inflammation of misinformation, or would you like to really get into the truth of who you are? We are right now entering to a stage of time in history where the dank darkness is not going to go away by light bulbs being screwed in. It's going to go away for you by you allowing the lamp unto your feet and the light unto your path to direct you. This is a time to go within so that we don't go without. This is a time to recognize our profound sense of interconnectedness and to withdraw from the systems that are lulling us to sleep. Awareness. Become aware that you cannot see the self with the mind. You are seeing the mind from the self. Can I say that again? Become aware. This is what I mean by awareness. Shut off the other things that are putting you to sleep. And remember that you can become aware. You become aware that you cannot see the self through this mind. This is why we need to withdraw from the mind, be in the quiet, be in the stillness. Become aware that you cannot see the self through the mind. You are seeing the mind from the self. It's the same thing that I think it was Muji that said, and I quoted this not too long ago, where he said, everything you want. How did he say that? Everything you want is found in the place from which you're wanting from, or it's in that deep place. Everything that you need is found in that place from which you are seeing the need. It is in the deep of you, the deep part of you. Become aware. Start to live in awareness. Start to become more conscious than ever before. Cultivate awareness in this world. Cultivate that invisible and indivisible part of you. That's what it means to be aware. To be aware is to be awake, to be conscious. The word consciousness is from the word, it's the Spanish word conciencia. It means to do with knowledge or with knowing instead of belief, from the knowing. So become aware of that space. You think you're seeing the world clearly, but your mind is filtering out everything that doesn't align with what you already believe. That's what it means to be in awareness. I'm aware of it. The next time you find yourself acting in a certain way, give you for instance, you get up, car doesn't start. You got somewhere you have to be. Car's not starting. You start to feel it. You can feel it coming up from your feet. You're getting stressed out because I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to be there. I just got to be there. I don't want to be late. Some folks are those kind of people who are on time to everything. I'm one of those people. I used to get messed with in my 20s about not being on time. I felt so embarrassed about it that I trained myself to be on time. I am a punctual person. And I'm one of these kind of people, if things are not going the way they need to go, that I can start to feel it in my body. Notice it, and then ask yourself, what's going to happen if I don't show up on time? What's the worst case scenario? So-and-so's going to be mad at me. I'll have to reschedule. What's the worst case? Stop yourself in the midst of that, because you're taking years off of your life as your mind begins to tell you something is terribly wrong when it's really not. Be careful, because your mind is aligning with what it already believes. And tell your mind to calm. Calm. Be at peace. As you do that, you're going to start to train the invisible and indivisible part of you. And you will start to instruct your life instead of being instructed by it. And then there's being alert. It's a state of being watchful. And let me tell you something. The mind is not watchful. The mind is memoryful. See, alert means to be watchful or vigilant, but the mind is not watchful. The mind is memoryful. In other words, you as the consciousness, you can be watching. You are the observer. Don't let the mind be the observer, because the mind has multiple lenses that it's filtering what it sees through. You need to, the place you're looking for is found in the place from where you're looking. But the clarity comes from the inside. It comes from the truth of who you are. It comes from the true self, not the facsimile, not the person that was built through the mind. The mind is not watchful. It is memoryful. It is full of filters and layers. Become alert. Become aware of that. Become vigilant in this work. Because as you do, you begin to build the new world. Now, lastly, so that I can get out of here actually on time today. Awake, aware, alert, but not alarmed. I looked up the word alarmed because I thought, is this really going to work? And it does, because the word alarmed means frightened, worried to stress, disturbed and fearful. And another caveat definition is called to arms. In other words, when you're alarmed, you go into fight mode or flight mode, which means, guess where you're not? You're not here. You're not in the imagination. You're not in the third eye. Now you're in reptilian brain. You're in survival mode. You're in preservation mode. And when you go there, there's things people can do in that mode that you would have never thought they were capable of. For instance, you've all heard this. Car or something heavy falls on a woman's child, and she goes beyond physical strength, lifts something that's 10 times her own body weight off of that child, and you wouldn't think that was possible. Well, in that mode, there's another level of strength. It's called adrenaline that comes into play there. If you stay in a fight, flight, or frozen mode, you're going to be frightened, worried, stressed, disturbed all of the time. And there's two reasons that I believe we should not be alarmed during this season. One of those is that we are in direct contact with our divine nature, and we realize our direct descendancy is God. I am a child of God. This is why I refuse to be alarmed. Yes, but there's the mind. I would say get your butt out of the way, but that might be considered rude. Yes, but. No, there's the mind again, telling you that's, yes, but what if this happens? Don't live in the what ifs. Live in the what is. I can't do that with the mind. How do I do that? With the spirit, with the conscious self, with the true self, with the one who is aware. See, when I'm in that fear mode, I'm turning off the creativity. I'm unable to create solutions because I'm living in the problem. Transcend and transform. Come out of the disturbance and set the course for the solution. There's two reasons. One, I know I'm a child of God. How many of you actually know that? Now, this is rhetorical because I want you to ask within yourself, not the mind, but your soul self, do I really believe that I am covered by the divinity? Do I really believe I'm a direct descendant of the God of all creation? Do I believe that the source is my parent and that source presence is within me? Do I really believe it? Really ask of yourself over this next week, do I really believe that? And number two, here's another reason to not be alarmed. Because we know that fear weakens us and diseases us, and I refuse to be unwell. Repeat that after me. I refuse to be unwell. Now, can you say it with some gusto? I refuse to be unwell. See, dis-ease is just disconnection from your ease. So when you're feeling uneasy, there is a disease that is trying its best to muster up within your system. Reconnect with your ease. Reconnect with the peace that passes all understanding. In other words, peace that passes all understanding means peace that doesn't make sense. Peace that doesn't make sense, it means it's a peace that is beyond the sensations because it's beyond the mind, and the mind operates in the sensations. Go into your spiritual beingness, revitalize that place, cultivate that place, and start to command your senses instead of being commanded by them. Here's what's cool. When you live in that love, you start to transform the venom of fear into the antidote that makes you immune to fear. The same venom from a snake's bite is what's used to create the antidote. The same venom. So the fear that you've been experiencing in your life, go into the laboratory of your soul and create a vaccine. Become impervious and immune to fear. This is why the scripture says, love perfected. It's a poor translation, says perfect love. Makes you think there's an imperfect love. So it's a poor translation. Because in the Greek there, it can be perfect love, but it also has another meaning, love perfected, which means I have cultivated it. Love perfected casts out fear. I like to say it this way, because fear doesn't need to be cast out either. That's bad use of your energy. Love perfected transmutes fear into fuel. Becomes the antivenom. I wrote it this way, very simply for me, because simple is easy for me. Makes it much easier. Love mixed into fear creates a vaccine for fear. You can live in that place. You can live in being awake, aware, and alert, but not alarmed. Folks, what we're experiencing right now is perhaps, I'm going to go further, I'm going to predict, what we're experiencing right now is going to be written about for hundreds of years to come as the greatest shift in the consciousness and in the systems of humanity. The United States of America has been a living experiment of democratic republic constitution for over 200 years. It's been an experiment because it had never in recorded history happened. What is next will be written about for years to come. We are deciding right now, this is why the contrast is so clear. We are deciding right now that there is a better way for all of humanity to live in a higher state of well-being. Everyone, not just the top 1%. And we're waking up. And as we're waking up, the system is crumbling. My prediction, watch what's going to happen before the end of 2025. There are some other things that are going to transpire that you would have never thought in your lifetime you would see. And if all you look for is the bad in it, that's all you're going to receive from it. We are turning a page. And sometimes when you turn a page in a big book, it makes a lot of noise. Stay awake. Stay aware. Stay alert. But don't be alarmed. The kingdom of God is within you. And so it is.